The biggest part of my journey was literally getting out of my head and into the purpose of me leaving my job and being motivated enough to actually follow through. If you want to learn how to make a lot of money through government contracting, then I invite you to watch this episode of the Work and Play podcast with none other than Jason White. Listen, Jason is a master at teaching people how to win 6- and 7-figure government contracts, literally by being a middleman. Now, all you have to do is learn how to do it yourself so you can get to the money. The government has it all, so why don't you learn how to get into it? Click the link below, learn how to do something that's going to change your life, and do yourself a favor. Don't forget to like and subscribe. From yours truly, Arylle Young. Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Arylle Young, and I want to start by setting a new tone. So for some reason, I feel like we should do a little bit of a refresher. Maybe it's just me, but we have to get recentered on why we're here. So the podcast, the Work and Play podcast, is about folks who left corporate America and went into entrepreneurship and the journey that they went through. I won't say the journey that they suffered or they excelled through, because at the end of the day, even those who have left corporate America and are currently entrepreneurs, they're still in their journey moving forward. And so some of the things that they had to grow through from corporate to entrepreneurship, they're still learning how to grow through them even as entrepreneurs. So what I realized is, to reset the podcast, this journey is never ending. It's just that this podcast gets to capture one specific part of the transition that a lot of people don't talk about. Another thing that a lot of people don't talk about is the mental health aspect of making any transition. But when we specifically focus in on the corporate transition and how to overcome the transition, many people don't like to talk about this, but honestly and truly, the biggest part of helping someone make that transition is really in the mind. The reason I say this is because when I was a corporate professional, I decided 3 years before I left my job that I was going to actually leave. I had the money that I needed. I had the idea that I was going to be successful, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to make more money on the side. So as I have looked back and I realized there was a process to me leaving, the biggest part of my journey was literally getting out of my head and into the purpose of me leaving my job and being motivated enough to actually follow through. Without that follow through, there would not have been a break in the pattern. For 3 years, I mean literally 3 years, I decided to leave my job. But year after year after year, I'm continuing to stay in a role that I'm unhappy in, and I'm starting to fulfill the same cycle. Now, why is this important? There are two things that you have to be aware of if you know you want to make a transition. The first thing is recognizing where you are mentally. Where are you with this transition? So I didn't know this, but when I was in corporate America, I wasn't just excited to be an entrepreneur. I truly wasn't a good fit. But there were reasons why I wasn't a good fit that went beyond my skills and abilities, my education, my connections. It was honestly about who I was and what emotional baggage that I brought into the workplace. We don't talk about this a lot as entrepreneurs, but especially as African American entrepreneurs, many of us come from backgrounds and childhoods that stem from trauma. Now, that trauma could be sexual, it could be physical, it could be emotionally, right? It could be all of these things all in one experience. And we grow up as adults and we walk around with these hurt children literally on the outside, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. So when I was in corporate America, there were times when the smallest thing, something as simple as taking feedback, if I wasn't able to take feedback, it was because for some reason there was a lens in my mind that was stopping me from receiving advice from authority. So when you think about, and I'm being very transparent with you, like my issues with authority obviously stem from my own childhood experiences, right? And so when you grow up as a child and you create a schema or a story in your mind that adults don't have your back or that you can't trust adults, you grow up with this mentality that adults can't help you, that you can't ask for help, no one's going to help you, and that you don't trust authority. So going into entrepreneurship, going into corporate America is when I realized things were falling apart. I wasn't able to just do simple things. Literally, we've had Nasir Bayan on the podcast, and he talks about fight, flight, or freeze. Well, I was in a freeze moment for years, but I didn't realize that's what it was. So when I went into entrepreneurship, the exact same mindset followed me into entrepreneurship that was never going to be conducive. So that's the reason why, as a coach, I've always said that it's really important that if you're serious about making the transition, that you consider getting a therapist. This person is here to help you think through some of those childhood traumas, some of the past behaviors that you've done, and they allow you to unpack them while you're in corporate America so that you don't take it with you in your entrepreneurship. Because the worst thing that you can do is try to heal when you don't have any funds available. I'm going to say that again. You want to quit your job, right? But you still haven't dealt with your past trauma. Doing it as an unemployed entrepreneur, meaning that you don't have money coming in, you just have the money that you saved, and you intend on finding healing in this space. It's going to require money, and it's going to require consistent income, some type of structure. So if you make this journey without tapping into your personal baggage, then you're going to take it with you and you're going to try to figure it out without the resources that you have available right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is one that a lot of us are familiar with. If you've ever been the person that says, God, why am I going through this again? Like, why me? And then why am I here again? Why am I going through this again? Then it's probably because you haven't learned the lesson yet, which means that you're given the opportunity over and over and over again to overcome whatever it is that you're experiencing right now. So the word that I want you to think about right now is patterns. What are your patterns? Some of the behavior that you've brought from childhood that you're experiencing right now in your 9 to 5 are showing up for you right now. And it's one thing to skirt them to the side and say, okay, I'll deal with it later. Or if I make more money, then I'll be able to afford therapy. It's one thing to pass it to the side, but it's another thing to have the courage to deal with it right now. So the patterns that you need to be aware of is when you tell yourself that, oh, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out, and you don't work out. Why is that? Or when you say, this is going to be my year, I'm going to lose the weight that I really want to lose, and then you don't. Why is that? Or when you say, I'm going to quit my job, and then year after year after year, you don't, why is that? These are patterns. These are subtle patterns in your behavior that you may or may not be picking up on because you're overshadowing it just by life. And when you have a 9 to 5, it's easier to overlook. And I'm not saying that it's that a lot of people in corporate America don't come to a place where they get to look at themselves. But when your life is set up for you on a daily basis, it's easier to miss those patterns that you're going through because they don't come up as much, right? You don't see the detriment of not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You don't see the detriment of not dealing with personal relationships with your mom or your brother or your sister. You don't deal with the fact that you said you were going to go to the grocery store and you didn't. Something just as simple as not doing what you said you're going to do. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger patterns of bad behavior that you can't overcome if you intend on being the best version of yourself. So I want you to think about it. What patterns are you taking into your next day and the next day and the next day? And what patterns do you currently have available to break simply by taking stock of the things that you do over and over and over again? So another way to look at patterns is the situations that you find yourself into, you find yourself getting into on a consistent basis. This could literally be you having an issue with saying no. And then when you finally get to a point where you have too much on your plate, you break down, things fall apart, you have to pick yourself back up again, and then you get back to a place where you can move forward again, you put more things on your plate, you break down, you fall out, like you get back up again. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get where I'm going? These are patterns that we find ourselves in. We're driving in the car and we say, God, why am I still here? And it feels like life is happening to us. because we never seem to catch the pattern in the first place, where we finally broke down. We're down here on the floor, we're looking up, and we say, get up. We finally get ourselves back up. We brush ourselves off. We get into a mood where we're working out, we're doing what we need to do, we're clear-minded, we're focused, and then the first request comes in. You say, you know what, I got enough room, I'll take this first request. The second request comes in. You say, okay, I'm juggling a couple things. And then before you know it, you've literally said yes to every single opportunity, and many of them don't align to where you want to go. It's time for us to take a moment. And before we make these decisions that put us back into the same pattern every single day, it's time for us to take a moment and just check it. Do one thing that's different that breaks the pattern, that allows you to say, this time I didn't do it this way. And perhaps you still fall, but you keep building the ability to say no. You keep building the ability to show up for yourself. You keep building the ability for you to work out when you said you're going to do it, so that you can start to trust yourself. So this all comes to fruition when you realize, as an entrepreneur, the only one you truly can count on is yourself. By maintaining these bad habits, by maintaining bad patterns, negative patterns, you're constantly diminishing your trust in yourself, which means you won't be able to trust yourself when you become an entrepreneur, which means you won't be able to deal with your spiritual or mental demons when you actually need to, which means you won't be able to attract the clients that you really want to attract. And the list goes on and on and on. So if I can paint the picture of why it's really, really important for you, one, to tap into your mental health, to understand and identify what it is that you're bringing from your childhood into your current day, to address them, to create a plan of action to change them, and to have the courage to change your patterns, and then recognizing those patterns. If I can't stress enough how important it is to go through that process while you have resources, then I have failed to do my job. Because it's important that you understand that there's no way for you to find purpose if you're clouded by the world responsibilities. Self-actualization is at the highest level of our needs. Before you get self-actualization, you have to be fed well, you have to be housed, you have to have your basic needs met. And one of your basic needs met is that you have to feel safe. But if you don't feel safe within yourself, you won't feel safe outside of your home. You won't feel safe in your family. You won't feel safe in your relationships. You won't feel safe in your churches. You won't feel safe in your business. You won't feel safe. And so without that safety, you have nothing. Your business will continue to go through the exact same pattern over and over and over again until you finally realize it's up to you to break the pattern. So I want you to think about that. This is a deep one, and I know it is. This is the Work and Play podcast, and it was designed for us to think about life outside of the cubicle. It was designed for us to realize we can reach beyond the stars, we can reach beyond the moon and become something that we've never ever seen before. But I would be lying to you if I didn't give you a glimpse of the process that you have to go through now or later. Meaning, check in with yourself. Tap in with yourself. Because when it's time to really, really show up, you do not want your mental or spiritual demons to come back and bite you in the butt and keep you from your success. Take the time, it's valuable. Consider it an investment, just like you would any other investment. I think you guys have got the point. We reset the tone of this conversation. So look out for more great and wonderful conversations with other entrepreneurs who have been corporate Americans and have gone through the journey of putting themselves first and working harder on themselves than they do on the job, listening to motivational speaking, finding out what their skill sets are, identifying what their passions are, and learning how to make money through them. I want to help you on your journey as well. My goal, honestly, on this channel, on the podcast, and anytime you see me in person, is really to help you think about your situation and to not leave here like you came. So if there is anything, a journal activity that you can do as soon as you end this episode, I just want you to take some time and think about everything that I've said. How does it apply to you? Are you currently in therapy? Or have you been putting it off for a while because you can't find the right therapist, because no one really understands you, because you don't feel like you quite need therapy at this point? Well, if you're someone who wants more for yourself, I encourage you to go after whatever it is that you need on the inside to feel whole again. If it's not therapy, go find yourself a tree, sit next to it, and journal. I promise you'll find healing wherever you look. Until next time, I thank y'all so much for watching every single episode of the Work and Play podcast. I promise to continue bringing valuable stories, valuable people on the Work and Play podcast, so you can see as many journeys as you need to understand that it is possible for you and for me. But until next time, y'all enjoy, go ahead and be great, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. Peace.